got this.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little bit of a break, but that's because all the Los Angeles card rooms have shut down once again. So I decided to do what any desperate poker player would do and head elsewhere where they're still offering some live, no limit Texas Hold'em. And one of those options was good old Las Vegas. I know this channel doesn't get a lot of Vegas footage, so I figured it'd be fun to hop around a few different rooms over 3 days and make a vlog for each spot. So to quickly break it down, day one is gonna be here at the Bellagio where I got a couple of nights. Tomorrow I'm planning on playing right across the street at Caesar's Palace. And on the third and final day, I'm up in the air between Venetian and the Orleans. Even here in Vegas, a lot of spots are still shut down as far as the poker room goes. So only a handful of places to play, but as long as all the major ones are open, I figured it'd be good for the vlog. Anyway, without any further ado, let's head downstairs and jump into some 2-5 no limit. Alright, so real quick before we jump into these hands, number one, bear in mind that this is 6-handed poker instead of the usual 9-handed due to the plexiglass dividers on each table. And secondly, on a more interesting note, for those of you who haven't heard of Bobby's room, it's the back room within the Bellagio poker room that's reserved for extremely high stakes poker, not just no limit, but all sorts of mixed games. If you guys are familiar with guys like Jungle Man and Gus Hansen, Doyle Brunson, and a bunch of other legends, this is the room where these guys play. And for God knows what reason, the Bellagio decided to put a 2-5 no limit table back there today. And as luck would have it, that's the table that I got called to. So in a completely undeserving way, I got to play inside of Bobby's room, which I thought was a pretty cool sort of fun fact as I sat down to start playing some cards. Anyway, as I'm doing my usual intro little video shot, I put the camera down and right away get dealt a playable hand in Ace King. There's an under the gun open to $15, so I re-raised to $55. The player on the button thinks for a little while before calling the 55, and then the small blind quickly makes it $200. The player on my right, who was the initial raiser, makes the fold. And when the action gets back to me, 6-handed with 100 big blinds, it seems like a no-brainer to just go all in. Even though I don't expect the small blind to be super light here, it's not a huge concern because we have a premium hand and there's also some dead money with the 55 from the button and the 15 from the original raiser. So that's what I do. I stick in all 500 of my dollars on the very first hand dealt. Not a good look, but seems a bit ridiculous to do anything but go all in. Unfortunately though, the button quickly makes the call and then the small blind calls as well. So we got a 3-way all in here. It's not exactly a fist pump situation, but all seems well when the flop comes down king high, and even more so when the small blind somehow flips over queen 10 offsuit. So I expect to scoop this pot more often than not, until surprisingly the button flips over the best possible hand, pocket aces, for a perfectly laid trap. Sir, if your goal was to stack me my first hand, well done, you did it. I pull out another 500 and make a mental note of the fact that the small blind went all in for $500 or $600 with Queen 10 offsuit. This information will become relevant sooner rather than later. And by that, I mean in the very next hand that I get involved with, which is a few minutes later when this exact player limps in and I check the big blind with 8-7 offsuit. The flop comes down 8-6-5, so I flop top pair with an open-ended straight draw. So I bet $10, and then the cutoff raises to $60. Nothing to do here but make the call, I think, so that's what I do. And we see a queen of hearts on the turn, completing the flush, but also giving me some additional outs if I was behind on the flop. I check it to him, and surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, given that this seems like a pretty fun player, he stuffs it for $330 total. Not sure what to make of this. I feel like often I'll have the best hand, and if I don't, I have a fair amount of equity. Seems kind of suicidal to call against any normal person here, but like I said, this guy had been playing fairly wild, and just a few minutes ago, he showed up with a very unexpected hand. So I make the call, not too excited about it, but like I said, happy to give action to these sorts of players since they're giving action to the rest of us. The river comes off a 10 of spades, not improving my hand at all, but I feel like I could still be good sometimes. Unfortunately, that's not the case though, because he flips over ace-8 offsuit, and I get stacked once again. So far, I'd say this session is at least vlog-worthy. Seems like that's the best way to put it. As if I wasn't having enough fun already, in this next hand, that same player opens to $15 first to act, and I call on the button with Queen Jack of diamonds. We go heads up to a flop of Jack 10-3. Of course, my opponent just bets $300. Pretty standard issue stuff here. I only have $400 left at this point, so he's pretty much putting me all in. Yeah, I'm going to call here. My reason being, well, number one, third time is usually the charm, right? And secondly, everyone knows that I'm just a calling station, so I kind of got to live up to that reputation. And lastly, would he really bet this massive with a good hand? That seems kind of ridiculous, even from this guy, right? So make the call, as you guys probably guessed, and end up losing to a set of threes.
Come on, bro. Come on. Come on. Come on, you come on, let's go.
Can this guy own me any harder? Not only is he destroying me every hand, but he throws a $25 green chip to me after the hand as a sign of pity and sort of laughs about it. All right, thanks, man. Just stop stacking me every hand and that would be a little nicer, but I'll take the 25 for now. Anyway, as I'm pulling out another $500, the table lets me know that they're all okay with anyone buying in deeper than the $500 cap. Since we're all okay with it and there's no jackpot here at the Bellagio to kill, I decide, all right, why not? So I add $1,500 instead of $500. So now I'm in for $2,500 in under 30 minutes. Not my proudest moment, but got to keep it real with you guys. Just a few shuffles after that hand, I have the cash on the table to add on, but I haven't had a chance to go get those extra chips from the cage yet because the line was so long at this point. So I still have just $500 in this hand. Anyway, the fun player who has all my money so far puts on the $10 straddle from under the gun. I get dealt Queen Jack on the button, so I raise it up to $35 and he makes the call. The flop comes down King Jack 7. He checks it and I decide to check it back. Turn card is an offsuit queen, which seems like a great card because not only does it improve our hand, obviously, but I feel like he'll often turn a lot more equity on this card. So when he checks, I put in a bet for value of $70. And again, this opponent does not cease to surprise me because he announces a raise. After figuring out how much he wants to make it, the total is $150, so just over a minimum raise. Nothing to do here but make the call, I feel like. Putting in a third bet on this turn card seems a little too ambitious, so I'm happy to just play in position going to the river. The river comes off the 5 of clubs. He puts in a bet of $70, so it seems like just a little block bet to try to get to showdown. I only have like $400 left at this point, so I just send it all in there and hope that he has a hand worse than mine that he's willing to call this bet with. However, that's not the case because he folds pretty quickly. So finally, after losing 3 big pots, I win one here. And although it sort of pains me because I'm so buried now, I happily throw back the $25 chip towards him as a sign of good faith despite us going to war this entire session. In the next hand, a pretty tight player opens from early position to $25. I call on the button with pocket 5s and the big blind calls as well. The flop comes down Jack 10-8 with 2 clubs. Big blind checks and the initial raiser bets $25 again. Up until this point, I'd noticed that he bets really big on the flop when he has a hand that he's scared to sort of like get sucked out with. So I feel like this is sort of a middling strength hand since he only bet 1/3 pot. Additionally, this flop is going to hit me a lot harder than it's going to hit him most of the time. So even though there is a player left to act behind me, I decide to call and see what develops on the turn. The big blind goes to fold, but then decides on a call. So it doesn't seem like anyone is too strong here. So when the turn comes the 4 of spades, the big blind checks, and this time the initial raiser checks it to me. I think it's time to execute the plan that I had in mind on the flop and start bluffing. So I make it $70. The big blind folds and the under the gun player makes the call. So we go heads up to a river card, which is the Queen of Hearts. Again, this is a card that's going to improve so many of my holdings and not that many of his. So when he checks it to me, I decide to size up a little and put all his 1 pair type holdings in a miserable spot. So I make it $200 and he thinks for a few seconds before making the fold. Very nice. Finally getting some momentum here at the Bellagio. In this hand, the under the gun player, same guy, opens to $15. There's a player on my right who makes the call, and I decide to re-raise on the button with ace-10 suited. The initial raiser folds, but the player on my right makes the call. So we go heads up to a flop of 10-8-3 with a diamond. Great flop for me, obviously. Surprisingly though, he leads for $70. I decide to raise it to $200. Often when a player leads into the 3-better, it's not going to be a super strong hand. So I figured if I'm going to be raising my bluffs, I'll also raise top pair, top kicker here. I'm expecting my opponent to either make the call or just fold. However, neither of those things happen because he announces all in for around $600 or $650 total. Now this is a weird spot because I'm representing quite a lot of strength, but he's still going all in. It doesn't make a lot of sense though, because would he really lead into me with a really strong hand like pocket 8s, pocket 3s, or 10-8 or something like that? The hand I'm most worried about actually is pocket jacks because sometimes people just won't re-raise those hands pre-flop. So I feel like it's not beyond the realm of possibility that this guy flops an overpair and decides he's just going with it. After thinking about it for a while though, I decide that I'm ahead of most hands that play this way. And even if he does have pocket jacks, I do have some equity here. So I just make the call and sort of cross my fingers. The turn card is the King of Hearts and the river is the Ace of Hearts. So an interesting run out here. However, it seems like we didn't need the help on the river because my opponent flips over Jack 10 of Hearts for an interestingly played top pair. Happy to take it though. Happy to add to our stack here after being buried early on. In the next one, I get dealt a premium finally from first position, so I open pocket kings to $20. An older player on my direct left raises it up to $60. So that seems like pretty good news because he doesn't look like the type to bluff. Now the small blind calls my $20. The dealer lets him know that it's $60, so he takes back the 20 and folds. Standard issue live poker stuff. Now it's back to me, and I have 2 cards with the same letter, so I'm gonna raise again. This time I make it $200, and without too much hesitation, my opponent makes the call. So we're going heads up out of position to a flop of Jack 7-7 with 2 spades. I feel like you could go either way here between betting small and checking. Against this opponent, I decide to check it because I feel like he's going to have a lot of pocket pairs like pocket queens, pocket jacks, pocket tens, pocket nines, and also hands like ace king, ace queen suited, and maybe even ace jack. And I suspect most of those hands to bet once check to here. However, my opponent sees right through my trap and checks it back. Turn card is the deuce of diamonds, and I decide to get extra sneaky because some players do check aces and kings, and I feel like maybe my opponent knows that. But who checks it twice, right? I mean, most people don't do that. So I just check it again, praying that my opponent takes the bait, and it seems like he does because he announces all in for almost $800, so twice the size of the pot. I quickly make the call and just flip over my hand. No reason to make my opponent show. Usually if I feel like I have the best hand, I just flip it over. The river card is the 6 of hearts, but we get to see anyway because my opponent flips over king queen of clubs. So it seems like the slow play works out this time, and we take down a pretty healthy pot. In the last hand of the night, the action folds all the way to the small blind, and he opens it up to $25. I'm in the big blind, and no, there had been no chopping all night, so no hard feelings against this player. When you're 6-handed, it seems like there's just too many chops to be chopping the blinds all night. So there's a lot of blind versus blind action at this table, and I look down at ace king of hearts in the big blind. I make it $80, and my opponent makes the call. The flop comes down pretty incredible. It's ace king 10, all different suits. He checks it to me. I bet small since I blocked so much of the hands he can continue with. So I make it $50, and surprisingly my opponent re-raises to $250. It seems pretty insane to re-raise this flop against someone who has shown a lot of strength pre-flop, but I'm happy to hear it. So I just make the call and decide to play in position. Turn card is the 9 of spades, bringing in a backdoor flush draw and potentially adding a few more straight draws to my opponent's bluffs. He checks it though, which is unfortunate. He only has around $400 behind, so I feel like there's no point doing anything but going all in here. So that's what I decided to do. Even though sometimes I'll just be shutting down his bluffs that might try to fire again on the river if I check behind. He'll also have a lot of hands that will want to continue here that I'm ahead of and want to get value from. So I feel like going all in is fine, and that's what I do, but unfortunately my opponent makes the fold. So it seems like he didn't really have anything. I'm happy to take it though. Even though I lost like every pot near the start of the session, things turned around and we started to run a little better near the end and managed to book a little bit of a win here. So after playing for like 8 or 9 hours, I decided to rack up and go get some sleep before heading to Caesar's Palace in the morning. All right, guys, so that's a wrap for day 1 of this Vegas trip. Somehow managed to book a win despite things going terribly right off the bat. All things considered, I'm more than happy with that. I'll take it. Tomorrow is day 2 at Caesar's Palace, which will be a new vlog, so you guys will see that in a few days. If you're interested, subscribe, and like I said, there's still that 3rd day to also look forward to. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the session for today at the Bellagio. I felt like by far the most aggressive player at my table, and I wasn't even being that crazy. So maybe this whole short-handed equals good action thing is a myth, or maybe I was just not in a great game. Who knows? More to come tomorrow, and maybe that'll shed some light on the whole short-handed thing even more, because at Caesars it's 5-handed, which is one less than the 6 max here at Bellagio. Sounds like a good time to me. Anyway, that's enough rambling. See you guys tomorrow or in a few days, depending how you look at it. Anyway, that's it. All right, bye. Peace.
Easy.